Welcome to the Feel Good Lab podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Gresh. Join me as we bring together the brightest minds in health and wellness, covering topics from sleep and nutrition to exercise and mindfulness. Our goal is to give you actionable advice to optimize your health and ultimately to feel good. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Feel Good Lab podcast. And I am joined by my great friend, go back a long time, Eric Carrero. You know, you were always one of the strongest, toughest dudes back in college. And one of the funniest things about, we really started working together about a year ago, on my health and wellness. But what's so funny is I went to you because I'm like, you're always one of the people I aspire to be like, strength, athletically, whatever. And I'm thinking, he's going to turn me into a beast. We worked out for the first 6 months. I don't think I lifted a weight heavier than 15 pounds. So let's start it out there. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what wellness means to you.
All right. My name is Eric Carrero. So let's start with a little Snapchat of a little how I got to where I'm at. So, UConn, I was looking at therapy programs and things like that. Injured a lot in my 20s. So that I was always in rehab. So
I remember that, the shoulder.
There was a bunch of things. So always in the rehab, ended up getting my master's degree in occupational therapy. From there, I worked subacute rehab, outpatient rehab, home health, and currently I'm in mental health right now. But anyway, so from there, even like you said, going through college, big into sports, martial arts, football, basketball, baseball, you name it, I was doing it. And I guess you could say I've always had a love for physical training. I was like one of those kids who wanted a six-pack at like 6 years old, which was, so I always had a passion for it. I was a kid who was training by myself before YouTube, before the internet. I would, or not before the internet, but but literally I would, search up explosive exercises. And then I would go in the backyard and I would have a parachute. I would have some weights wrapped around, So my passion for it began at an early age. I would say wellness-wise, looking back at it, to get a little deep on you.
Please.
So, I lost my father when I was young, so it just opened up my eyes to, how precious life is and not to really take it for granted, right? We only have this one body, so we have to make sure that it's, at optimal levels, that we're trying our best to stay healthy for the people and our family around us.
No doubt.
So.
Yeah, and I think, you opened my eyes a lot. So, again, I went to start working with you, and it was about, becoming a beast. And all of a sudden, you're like, become a beast? You have no mobility in your ankles, in your hips, in your shoulders. What do you mean becoming a beast?
Yep.
And we worked hard, and I'll tell you what, the impact that you made, I'm still getting the benefits. Eric just had a baby a couple of days ago, so congratulations.
Thank you.
But so we haven't been training together for a little bit.
Yep.
I'm still feeling great, but holy cow, am I missing it. And I'm realizing that it's about the consistency. It's about the little things. And if you don't take care of your body, especially getting older, 34 now, not as young as I once was, and I'm feeling it. So, but the big impact for me was not about strength. It was about mobility. Can you talk a little bit about that? And how did you, when did you realize that? Because that wasn't always the case for you.
Yeah. So, mobility-wise, like we were talking just before this, when you're in your late teens, early 20s, you're feeling good all the time. You could run and play basketball for 6 hours, 4 hours. You could wake up the next day, and then, late 20s start creeping in. You got a steady job. You're either sitting at a desk, you're driving, you're commuting, your body starts to tighten up. All right, so for me, mobility-wise, is I would notice, that I would play basketball, or I would play flag football, or I would play, rec softball, and then I would get injured just from swinging too hard, going up for a rebound. However, I would get injured, and I realized I had to take a step back and kind of reassess. In my head, I'm like, I'm 30 years old. I should be in the prime of my life. Why am I so stiff and in pain all day? I shouldn't be like that. So what I did was, and again, I took a step back and I started focusing on my joint health, right? I looked from the ground up, started looking at my feet, my ankles, my knees, Like why were my knees hurting? My patellar tendons, why were they, so tight? Why couldn't I walk downstairs without looking like a pirate? You know what I mean? Like all stiff-legged.
And you're training, by the way, as an occupational therapist, so like you understand the biology.
Absolutely.
Is this you kind of connecting the dots between like your training and then as you start to get a little older, and you work with an older population too.
Mm-hmm.
So were you seeing kind of like the degenerative nature of if we sit all day, if we're on our phones all day, and we don't counteract it, we're going to have real problems as we age.
Exactly. I mean, you're looking at everything from, surgeries. Look at the surgeries in the United States, from either, sports-related surgeries or, anything like that. Those things are skyrocketing. The joint replacement medical field right now is exploding. Mm-hmm. So like when you go back to it and you start looking at the body and trying to assess, again, it's all about your goals personally, right? My goals are going to be different from your goals, right? You're into golf, right? I'm into jiu-jitsu. So
what are you saying?
That we're just going to have different goals, So like my flexibility, the way I approach my flexibility, there'll be some similarities, and you won't have to achieve like the flexibility that I'm shooting for.
Right.
But you should attain a certain level of flexibility and mobility that's going to allow you to play golf, 5-10 days in a row if you chose to without being in pain.
I'll tell you, that's an area that made, my golf game playing pretty good this year, but huge difference in feeling like fluid, I guess is the best way to put it. Mm-hmm. And here's where everything we did started from the ground up. You talked about that. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about foot health, because you opened my eyes to a couple of different things. So 0 drop shoes,
yep,
wide toe box, barefoot. Talk a little bit about that, because that to me made a huge difference. Once we fixed my feet, then my ankles got better, then my knees got better, then my hips got better, all the way up the chain.
Absolutely. So again, when we're looking at sneakers nowadays, right, you see the big foam, it's basically like a cast for your foot, all right? So when you start wearing these big foamy shoes that have like all this cushion, all right, it messes with the length of like your tendons in your foot. Your Achilles tendon starts to shorten up, all right? So I looked at it from a stance where my feet are super weak, right? So I incorporated correct toes. I don't know if you heard of correct toes. Basically toe spacers, but like the best toe spacers that are out there. And I would literally just start using those around the house. I bought like Vivo Barefoots, and I would start. They would always tell you to don't start wearing barefoot shoes and then go run half a mile. Start out slow. But again, it comes to that point where people want satisfaction. They want those quick results.
Instant gratification.
Absolutely. So, and I'm okay with slow progress. So I took the time. I would wear my Vivo Barefoots, and I would mow the lawn. I would walk around the house. All right, and just kind of that teaches you basically how to walk, or basically how to use your muscles in your feet. Because a lot of people, again, when they wear these big cushiony shoes, they're heel striking, right? So all the pressure, all the tension when you heel strike is coming up from your heels, up to your knees, up to your hips.
And you can get away with it because you got all the foam there.
Exactly.
So you don't need to have great form. Even running, right? That's probably,
exactly.
Yeah.
And that messes with your biomechanics with running. That's why people, they get injured. Just from biomechanic wise, that they're so used to wearing these big foamy sneakers. But yeah, so with barefoot training, think about all the muscles in our feet, right? I'm not sure if this is a true fact, but the amount of muscles in our feet is comparable to, let's say, I don't even know how to say it really, but there's more muscles in our feet than, let's say, like our hands or something like that. Mm-hmm. So we have to strengthen that.
Because we're on our feet almost all day.
Exactly.
So definitely. And they get tight.
They get extremely tight. So you get plantar fasciitis for people. So that's people who have plantar fasciitis, again, they're in those tight shoes, and then they go and run and play basketball or some sort of sport that kind of stretches that foot out. And that plantar fascia is kind of like, whoa, what the hell just happened? You know what I mean? So in a sense, I started, again, with the barefoot shoes, incorporating that to the 0 drop shoes. So I go back and forth because they're both 0 drop, really.
Yeah, and for anybody out there who's not familiar, 0 drop, you might know better than I, Eric, but is basically the difference between the height of the heel of the shoe to the height of the toe. So typically shoes today have a certain angle to them. It almost kind of leans us forward. And what 0 drop means is that there is no angle, just like if your foot was on the earth. And I'm not certain if it's right for everybody, But I know for me, when I made that change to zero drop shoes and then working out with you barefoot, I just started to see significant improvements and I felt sturdier. And again, we talk about golf, which was one of my goals when we started working together, was to just be a little more fluid, maybe add some strength. It all starts from the ground. That's where all of the power comes from.
Yep.
So we weren't lifting weights really at first. We were working on my feet and my ankles and my hips. Meanwhile, my golf swing started getting better. And, soon enough, we did add in those other areas of mobility but that was probably the biggest impact. And so I know that when I'm talking to other people that are, lifting weights, and really the big advice that I give them is take a look at the bottom of the chain, your feet and ankles, and realize that if you don't fix them and you start building habits around heavy lifting, deadlifts and squats and whatnot, you could potentially do more damage than good.
Oh yeah. I mean, was too. And I would even preach to the head coach. I'm like, maybe we should take a step back off of the big compound lifts. But, it's a business, right? These kids have to prepare for college who look at certain lifts. So even if, their form or their technique wasn't right, he still wanted to do some of these, these exercises. So I tried my best to kind of, correct the form as quick as possible. But some of those things, again, takes time, right? Because we're involving different aspects. We're putting in the ego into lifting, which is huge. People have difficulty stepping back or putting their ego to the side, to reassess. To go back to like the foot and, zero drop shoe, another big thing is also like the amount of space in the front part of your shoe, your toe splay.
Yeah.
I had a bunionectomy, right? The reason being is I used to wear, playing football, basketball, you would see the shoes narrow, right? What does that do to your toes? Squishes them in, right? That impacts it. Again, then they're impacted, and then you put in the big foamy cushion. All right, that's all gonna affect your ankles to your knees, how well you can balance, right? Because if you're standing, right, what's gonna be better balance? Something that's like this or something that's real narrow?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So again, then you take into account just strengthening, the toes, the foot, the arches, right? People always talk about collapsed arches, right? There's a bunch of arch support being in therapy. Oh, they have super flat feet. My feet are weak. You need arch support. You need ankle, stability. So those are the things that you could actually work on. You could work on your strength. They have a bunch of exercises for toes, for foot strengthening. But I felt with like strengthening the foot, the best way to do it was to walk around in my zero drop or my Vibrams, 5-finger shoes, because it really isolated the toes.
Yep. And you brought up a good point earlier. The analogy of like normal shoes today are kind of like a cast for our feet. And even me, I had some ankle issues back in college, so I've been playing basketball a couple times a week, and I wear 2 ankle braces tightened up on my big basketball shoes forever. That's what caused a lot of the damage. I mean, I really was treating the bottom half of my leg as a cast.
Yep.
And you don't realize that energy, if your ankle's not moving in the right way, if your toes and your feet, it's going up to your knee, it's going up to your hip, it's going to your lower back, and it's going all the way up the chain. But another area I want to talk about is kind of where you're going. So you got into occupational therapy. You're helping people. You're really understanding the body. You're doing a lot of training. Your personal goals, right? You do jujitsu, so you're really in tune with your own health and wellness. You train people. You train me, some of other friends, a lot of young athletes that are looking to get to the next level, maybe playing college. But tell me a little bit about, because we were talking before this, so I know where you're going to go, but I'm excited to hear about where you're focused, where you think the next move is going to be to really, really help people improve.
Yeah. Again, like you said, I train people. I love training people, working with people. But I just felt too with, occupational therapy and just the medical field in general, it's too business-like. It was all about, a lot of therapists will agree with me in this sense, it's all about productivity, right? How productive can you be? It's not necessarily about patient-centered care, So that was a big thing that kind of put me off as I moved further along in my career. I felt like I was treated more just like, it was like more business, like as opposed to me working with an individual, getting actual results with them. It was like, go see this person for a half hour, 2 times a week, that's all you get. I'm like, all right. I'm like, okay, like that's all I get. So from there I transitioned, with COVID, I was like, I have to do something else. So I started looking at like some online programming, right? So I started writing training programs, flexibility, strength, combining the both. Just kind of just educating people on flexibility and strength. Because a lot of people who think flexibility, they think of yoga. They think of maybe weak individuals that are just flexible and not strong, when in reality you could be both, right? So then from there, I always felt like I wanted to do more. I'm like, I want to help people. That's always been my thing. I want to have a service to people, you know. And so I started transitioning, looking more into the nutrition aspect of it, right? So we're looking at daily habits, eating habits, you know. So I've been looking into, you know, functional diagnostic nutrition. Basically, it's like telemedicine for people. So we're going to address the root cause of these people's illnesses, all right? From Crohn's disease, you know, from anxiety to depression.
Chronic pain,
joint, you know, everything, all right? And that all comes down, not all of it, but a big part of it is the nutrition aspect. You know, people they think, oh, food is whatever. You know, they may not take food as seriously as they should. You know,
food is medicine.
It is medicine.
Let's be clear.
Absolutely.
And if we treat our food as medicine, we don't need medicine.
I agree with you 100%.
And I love that because, I mean, our whole entire business is built on that. My dad, functional medicine is the core of what we do, and it means remove all of the things that are causing harm to the body, the toxins that are in our food, that are in the products that we're using. Looking at the toxic exposure, huge, and then replacing it with nutrition. And not everything can get from our diet, but there's a lot that we can. So eating healthy is number one. Second is looking at supplementation. Yep. And what can we do to provide the body with other nutrients and supplements that we can't get in our daily diet? Are there any things that you're seeing, you know, with the patient population you're dealing with that are really helping people on the supplement side?
Supplement side, I think it's more about just education right now. A lot of people are just oblivious. I don't mean to be blunt in that term, but they just don't know, right?
Right.
What they see is commercials for all these, you know, highly processed foods, right? They go to the grocery store. What do they see? You know, they see everything healthy is kind of kept on the outside, all right? Everything that's fast and easy, and it's not, you know, personally not their fault, right? Because the lives that we live are so hectic every day. It's got to get, you know, if you're a family man and you got kids or, you know, a career, what do you want to shoot for? At the end of the day, you're tired, so you want to grab what's quick, all right? But not realizing that's just kind of impacting your energy levels in itself. But I would say for the clients, a lot of the times it's education, and that goes for the same with going back to the flexibility, strength part. It's just, I feel like we're just such like in the beginning stages of just a lot of topics.
There's a massive shift happening. There's
Massive.
no doubt. And I think we're on the right track. You know, until people are ready to make the change, there's a lot of people that know what to do, and it's hard to stick with it. And so one of the reasons I loved working with you is the accountability aspect, you know, showing up twice a week and having you hold me accountable. And that's really a huge piece of this. So getting into coaching, even when it comes to nutrition, is going to be really critical, and helping people to make the changes, because it's not easy to change your diet. It's very challenging. But if we do, and we start and realize that, you know, my chronic pain is very likely being exploited by the 30 years of unhealthy diet, well, it's going to take a long time to fix that. We can't just reverse it. We certainly can't reverse it with a pill, but where we can reverse it is with our lifestyle choices. We can cut out the foods that are making us sick. And here's the key, and I know this is something you're starting to look at, testing. It's individual. Foods that are good for me are not necessarily good for you, and foods that are bad for you are not necessarily bad for me. There are certain ones. A lot of people would benefit from reducing their gluten and dairy input because of, you know, the gluten that we have here in the United States is not the same as the gluten that's in the rest of the world. Same with the dairy. Unfortunately, our foods are more processed here, and that means that there are more side effects and repercussions from that. But a lot of people with chronic degenerative conditions, there's an inflammation aspect to it.
Oh, without a doubt.
And all of these things are leading to inflammation, including the toxic burden. So with your functional testing and your training that you're looking to do, there's a testing component, right? And an individual aspect to that.
Absolutely. It's customized, right? So, I mean, a lot of the times, too, is the people, you know, the general public, when they go to their doctors, are they asking these questions? to get down to the nitty gritty, or they're just saying, you know what, you have high blood pressure. Here's some medication to bring down the high blood pressure. Next client.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And it's, accountability wise, like we talked about, it's good to have someone there to, hold you accountable, but it's almost, we have to kind of figure out a way to open that client's eyes to say, you know what, I have the roadmap now, so this is the way, as opposed to just, shooting darts in the dark. Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
It's, if they have a map and they know how to get there, and we could show them, like, listen, you're going to get results. This is the path that you have to take. And that this is a snapshot of, let's say, your future, a healthier you. But I feel like it has to be customized. I mean, and that's the thing. So with the testing, I'm just getting started with it. So it's a functional diagnostic nutrition. They offer a variety of tests. So my standpoint is I kind of want to be like that advocate, that bridge between, let's say, the general population and the medical doctor, so that I'm not trying to be their doctor, but I'm trying to help them, advocate for them in a sense. So when they go to the doctor, they could say, oh, what about this? I had this testing done. Can you explore more into this avenue? I'm having pains here, just to kind of give a deeper insight into their daily life and, what they're feeling, as opposed to just treating symptoms.
Yeah, that's huge. What kind of conditions, are people coming to you? Is it weight loss? Is it start somewhere? Is it start like with me around training and then you educating me on mobility and nutrition and other things like?
Yeah, so I have clients that come for just strength training, right? So I have younger athletes too, who want to get better, right? They want to get bigger, faster, and stronger. And again, with them, it's education on eating right.
You must love working with them because they're like, they don't have the habits like we do. How old are these kids? 14 to 18?
14 to 18.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, with them, it's tough because it comes back to their home life, right? Because I could educate them, but I have to educate their parents as well,
right,
because they're providing all the food.
Yeah.
But those kids are hungry. So it's good. They come in, they're dedicated.
Yeah. They want to get to that next level.
Yeah.
So that's a great audience, and you can make such an impact. You start teaching them these things now.
Yep.
Oh my goodness! Think about what they'll be like when they're our age.
And that's what I think a part of me when I train and I train the younger kids, or I think about when I was young, and I didn't have that. Meriden Public Schools, Meriden, wherever. I grew up in Meriden, and I'm like, I want to be that person that I wish I had to show me the way. Like, all right, I had a strength coach, but again, he was primarily like bodybuilding, not necessarily, functional strength per se. That's gonna, keep me healthy.
Oh, how do you define functional strength?
So functional strength for me is basically, how would you define it for me? Being able, I would say daily life, right? Being able to move freely without having any type of pain, stiffness in your body, not having to worry, I might tweak my back here, I don't know, whatever it may be. I would say functional strength for me is just overall being healthy, strong in a sense where, I could go help people. Let's say you come to me and you're like, Eric, can you help me move? I'm moving out. All right, let's go pick up move these couches, move this, move that. But then also that strength's going to translate into other sports and things that I do in my spare time,
Yeah. And two other areas. So we talked a lot about nutrition and supplements, but I would say more important are hydration and sleep. And I always love to tell this story. It blew my mind when I started to understand this. Our bodies can go a long time without food. And back in the day, when we were tribal and living in caves and going and hunting, we didn't have food all the time. So we think of food 3 meals a day. We got to always be eating. That's not necessarily the case. Water, on the other hand, we're gonna die much quicker if we don't have water. But what's even crazier is sleep. We can only go a couple of days without sleep. In fact, that's why they torture people with sleep deprivation. I mean, it is catastrophic. So if you think about the biggest way to make a real lasting impact, improving people's sleep, getting 8 hours, getting them hydrated, drinking electrolytes, not just water, and drinking it at the right times throughout the day, and then nutrition. And that's kind of how it's become clear to me. But have you seen that in your training?
Yeah, for sure. For the sleep aspect, when I'm training even younger kids, all right, they think that they're going to get stronger when they're doing the exercises, right? They don't get strong. The way your muscle and your body repairs, that's how your body gets stronger. So when does your body repair itself? When you sleep, right? So I try to tell them, younger kids, 14 to 18, 21, they like to stay up late, stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning, then, go about their day, wake up at 6, go to school, go to classes, work out, eat whatever they want. And I try to emphasize, I'm like, listen, you need a solid, each person is different when it comes to the amount of sleep they need. Like for me, I think I need maybe 6 hours and I feel great. But I tell these younger kids that are working out strenuously, I said, you need to focus in on your sleep, because then that's when your body rebuilds. That's when those muscles and those muscle fibers that you tore from, that you're tearing, those little micro tears when you're working out, that's what's building it, is when you're sleeping, you're letting your body recover. So I think that's huge. The sleep is humongous. And then, like you said, with hydration, they always tell you drink a gallon of water a day, all right? I don't necessarily drink a gallon of water a day. I try to stay hydrated, but I also try to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables that are high in water content. So it's not necessarily, so when people tell me, oh, I need to drink this a gallon so I'm hydrated, you're peeing 75 times a day, not realizing that there's other ways to get water in your body naturally. Fruits like that, grapes, strawberries, especially fruits that are lower, like in the sugar content, right? Yep. So I try to I'll eat grapes, but grapes have a higher sugar content. So I like, watermelon. After sports, let's say jiu-jitsu, if I have a nice fresh cut up watermelon, I'm slamming like half of the the container. Yeah. Because it's mainly water, but it also has different nutrients in that are going to help with your recovery. So again, it all comes down to education on the types of fruits and things that you could eat.
Yeah, I recently started adding electrolytes to all my water, and now I feel like I can't drink water without it. At first, the taste was a little salty, a little different, and now it's like if I don't have the electrolytes in there, I feel like I'm not getting the proper hydration. But I felt a huge difference. So there's low-hanging fruit out there that can make a massive impact. I think anybody would benefit from proper hydration, proper sleep. The nutrition and the eating healthy is a little bit more challenging because we've got, decades of habits that have built up. And one of the things I always look at, you mentioned this earlier, it is so easy to eat unhealthy in our culture, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's very challenging to eat healthy. If you want fast food in the United States, I can't really tell you a great healthy option. And so for me, we're on the road all day. We're doing stuff. If it's not convenient and easy, a lot of people aren't going to stick with it. So I do think that there needs to be a little bit of a shift. I see it coming though, because the consumers are looking for it. Yeah. They understand what we eat. We are what we eat at some level. And there's not much of a difference if you eat the same thing for 30 years that's making you unhealthy. Well, there's a lot of chronic degenerative disease that I believe the root cause is what we're putting in our body every day.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. There's a lot of, even on Instagram, there's a bunch of, my wife follows this page called Just Ingredients, where she goes over all of the ingredients that are in, some of these processed foods that we're eating. She compares them to healthier options. So there's a lot of awareness in that sense where people are starting to realize, social media is helping because we have all the access to it now, right? But yeah, when it comes down to what we're putting into our bodies and, heavy metals, even from stuff from not even just what we're eating, but what we're putting into our skin, right? My wife's like, nope, you can't. I'm going to buy you deodorant that has no aluminum. So I'm using aluminum-free deodorant. There's just so many things that we're, again, oblivious to, that now we're starting to realize and kind of analyze, like, why are we getting so sick? Why is this population so, overweight? Why are they so lacking so much energy? Like, the questions could go on and on and on and on, why? Until we start just doing the investigative work ourselves. So
it's happening. I know you've been on that mission. We're on that mission, for certain. And that's what gets me up every day and gets me so excited, because I see the trends in the world and people are realizing the pharmaceutical industry is amazing for acute care. I mean, it's the best, especially in the United States. We have the best medical technology in the world. But when it comes to chronic care, we are not one of the healthiest countries in the world. And I believe that people are waking up to that, and they're realizing the way we're treating chronic conditions with the same kind of Band-Aid approach where we need a pill to mask a symptom, that's not going to work. We need to address the underlying root cause. And it may be hard, but it's worth it, because imagine what your life is like when you're healthy versus what your life is like when you're sick.
Yeah.
You can't even compare the two. When I'm sick, I'm curled up in a ball. I want one thing. I want to get better.
Yep.
When I'm healthy, I'm like, what can we do today? I'm the most excited person in the world.
Yeah. There's something too that whenever I look at like my life and like how people are kind of like systematized to, get out of school, work 30 years, retire, die. You know what I mean? So now when I look at it, I'm like, I don't want to work for 35 years unless it's something that I love. And I want to be healthy at the end of, I want to be healthy not only at the end when I quote unquote, when I should be, living it up, living the retire life. A lot of people think that after high school that, that was their peak. So now physically, they're like, oh, those are high school days. Yeah, you were young, healthy, vibrant, but I mean, 30s, 40s, you still have the opportunity to turn your life around, like tenfold, and live your best life. But also, for me, having kids is being that person, like
lead by example.
Exactly, and that's it. I'm gonna lead by example. I'm not gonna do something that I wouldn't do. All right. So I go through that with my training, with my nutrition that I educate people on, even being as a therapist, and I'm a student, lifelong student, right? I'm always learning. I never think that I know too much, but I think people have this notion that they can't turn their life around, or I'm too maybe overweight, or I have this chronic disease that I can't get rid of, because they've only trusted the medical field, and all they do is, for the most part, and I can say everybody, like all encompassing, that they just give them a pill and say that's it. I feel like I could help in that sense as well, open up some people to. What
are some resources? Because you said, and that's true, you are a lifelong learner. I know you introduced me to some great ones. For instance, Knees Over Toes on Instagram. Really cool at getting certain mobility exercises and looking at the lower body and the feet and the ankles. What other resources do you have?
So I like Knees Over Toes is good. There's some definitely aspects that you could take away from his training. There's another guy. You're talking about just like Instagram kind of?
No, just anywhere. Where do you look? Like, where do you get your knowledge from? You said you're always learning, so.
Yeah. So I mean, just for Instagram, there's a flexibility research guy that I follow. He's out of the UK. There's another guy in Florida called Jeff Wolf. He's big into flexibility. Another guy, Range of Strength. And there's also some local guys. Ed Williams, who's a physical therapist by trade, but he runs a lot of he used to own a bunch of CrossFit gyms. He has like his own little education portal that he teaches students on. And for me, I just look online for the most part.
And obviously you're a great resource.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell people where they can find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Eric_Elevate.
ELEV8, the number 8.
Yep. Right from there, and then my Facebook page is just Eric Carrero. Send me a friend request. Take a look at some of the videos.
You've got a lot of great content on there, and it's kind of like a culmination of what we were just talking about. Like, I love your content. It's I love training with you personally more than anything. Yeah. But if I can't get that, you've always been a great resource, and you've been there for me if I need to reach out and help.
For sure.
And are you still taking? Are you working digitally as you open up this new practice? Are you going to be looking for customers?
I will be eventually. Not right this second. I do have a couple of clients that are doing some online training programs. I haven't opened up my, the nutritional part of it just yet.
Yeah.
That's a work in progress, but hopefully before the end of the year, I'll have that up and running, and then kind of start helping more people. The more the better,
Yeah, well, I got one final question for you, E. And because on this podcast, really what we try to do is take experts like yourself and give people something actionable they can take home. So, say you're talking to somebody in their 30s who's currently training, maybe not as focused on mobility. Mm-hmm. What sort of actionable advice would you give them to implement in their training that's maybe more on the convenient side, right? Because we want to try to make a broader impact. So what's something easy that people could add into their current training routine that you think would make a big difference?
So the current training, something that they could add into their current training routine, I would say, it's a good question.
I mean, I know what you did for me, so.
I mean, I've got 1,000 things that they could do. That's a tough part. Let's go nutrition-wise. Start off with at least a glass of water every morning.
Yeah.
Right? Before you take your pills, before you eat breakfast, start off with a glass of water. When it comes to the training aspect, I would say, let's focus in. I want to say like your hips, but it's I don't want to just say blindly stretch your hips out. So that's the thing.
Right,
so everything
right.
I want to come with more information.
We'll talk a little bit because hips were a huge issue for me, and that's actually where I was going to go with it. You know, foam rolling was good, but you even brought up the fact that like you're not really getting there. And it was for me about sitting in a couple of hip opening stretches for a long period of time every day, and that consistency finally started to loosen it up. But for me, you'd be like, oh, you stretch your hips? I'd be like, yeah, I stretch my hips. You'd be like, how long? I'd be like, I don't know, 30 seconds. You're like, that's not enough.
So I got one. So two basic stretches that I would say that you could do is called the 90-90 stretch.
Yeah.
So we went over that one. And the thing is with stretching, people think stretching is all about 10 seconds, touch your toes. But you have to learn, and again, through the training program and work with me individually, you would see that I would say you have to learn to relax, right? It's also that's called Proprioceptive Neuromuscular Facilitation, PNF, which basically is like, let's say we're stretching out your quads or your hamstrings per se. I'm going to have you contract your quads to lengthen up your hamstrings, okay? But you want to, and we could do small contractions, 5-10 seconds, but we're going to do about 5 to 10 contractions at 5 seconds. So that's getting us more towards the minute marker. So initially we want to start 30 seconds to a minute, and then as our tension, as our tendons become more resilient to the stretching, we can increase the length. But the takeaway, like I said, we can start with a 90-90. You can look it up. There's plenty of YouTube videos out. And again, just get in the position, right? And there's ways to modify it. The other one would be I know we worked on it with you. You had a lot of difficulty it's called the hero's pose, where we're stretching out not only the ankles, but the tib as well as the quads. I think
you're bringing back nightmares bringing it up. But it's how you really need to work on it. And to me, it felt like the opposite of sitting all day. Mm-hmm. And it's just really opening up in that kind of reverse order. And so the reason I started to incorporate it was like counteracting all the sitting that we're doing.
Yeah, look how I'm sitting right now.
Yeah.
I'm all curled up, and it's the same thing. We drive all day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're sitting on our phones all day. If you work at a computer, you're hunched in all day. So those are things, again, that we could try to incorporate into our training, is just opening up the chest, right? Get a physio ball and just sit back on it and open up that chest and just learn how to breathe. That's the biggest thing too, is just learning how to breathe in some of these positions. So if you start with 90-90, you look at your ankle flexibility, and then also just opening up your chest, So I think those are good starting points.
Love it.
If you have more questions, you could always send me a DM.
Yeah, reach out directly. Yeah. So, all right, Eric. Well, always a pleasure. Congratulations on the new baby.
Thank you.
Love seeing you, brother. And I look forward to working together more in the future. I see with the direction you're going, I think there's a lot of things that we're going to do together. So I'm excited to see how it works out.
Thank you, my man. Pleasure being here.